with the first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. I am your host, Dan Baker, here with the boys. We got Mason Beck and Lee Cook here as usual. Today, we are going to be talking about the rest of season rankings. We got, only, I think, 5 weeks left in the season before playoff starts. Let's see. We got 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, so we got 4 weeks left before your playoffs start. Let's get ready for it. Talk about the rest of the regular season and some playoff schedules. We got all 4 positions here for you. We're going to do 12 QBs, 24 running backs and wide receivers, and finish it off with 12 tight ends. I am going to send it off to Lee first for your first quarterback. Let's pull it up. All right. Oh my God, it's already there. Why am I surprised?
I don't have him at QB1, but I have him firmly in the top 3 tier, maybe a 4. But
all right. So who is your QB1 then?
Lamar Jackson's QB1.
It's got to be. It's the only right answer. Yeah.
Take Cam out of there. He's going into that F tier that's not even existent.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say about Lamar, and I mean, he's doing so much better than the rest of the pack, but he does have the 31st easiest schedule, so second hardest schedule moving forward. It doesn't matter though. Lamar does Lamar things. Let's send it to Mason. Who do you got? Oh yeah.
I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts. There tends to be MVP fatigue, and the addition of Derrick Henry playing so well may hurt the case for MVP. But his numbers are so much better than the MVP season last year. Do you see anybody else challenging for the MVP?
Oh man, I mean, truthfully, Jaden does mean so much to his team, but Lamar's in a similar situation and just so much further into his career. He's operating at such a high level. He still misses some throws. You see it every week, but he makes up for it with the big plays. Yeah, I couldn't see anybody topping Lamar right now.
Agree.
All right, Mason, QB2. Who do you got?
Rest season, I got Jalen Hurts. I think Allen is the better quarterback, more talent fantasy-wise, obviously. But if you really look at Jalen Hurts' schedule and what Hurts has done this season, through 10 weeks, he's had 2 games where he hasn't finished as a top 12 quarterback. Once in week 4, where he finishes QB 13, and once at QB 24 in week 3. He's been great every other week this season. If we look at the end of the year schedule, specifically, let's just look at playoffs. Week 1 against Pittsburgh, that is a tough one. That does kind of stink. But then you go against Washington and Dallas, who are 2 teams that have given up a good amount of points to quarterbacks this season, especially when you got Hurts, who has already been killing it.
Just to add, over the last 6 weeks, Washington has been the 8th best defense against quarterbacks. And I do think he'll have a better game tomorrow night, but by the late season matchup, Marshawn Lattimore should be integrated into the offense, and that's a big game. But Dallas in your championship game, and they've already quit on the season. If you're in the championship game with them, obviously you probably have the advantage at quarterback.
And then I also want to throw in 2 other games they have before playoffs. Baltimore, whose secondary struggled against pass this year, and then Carolina, which, any quarterback against Carolina is a good start.
Those 2 teams leading into your playoffs are going to get a lot of teams that are just on the fence there right into the playoffs. And solid matchups moving forward. A couple of division opponents, that play hard for that. At QB3, I have Josh Allen. After that, I do think there's a bit of a tier break. Josh Allen does face the 26th easiest schedule moving forward. Bottom tier there, and the last game, if you do make it to your championship, is against the Jets. We've seen them have good games against the Jets, but they are the 8th best against quarterbacks with their schedule adjusted for expectation. Leading up to that, though, Detroit and New England, that's a couple of cakewalks. Josh Allen should definitely dominate leading up to the championship. Anybody have someone different for QB3?
I want to just throw in this comment. We got Gabe asking who's better rest of season, Drake May or Bo Nix. I'm a big Bo Nix fan if this is your first time watching us. So I'm going to, of course, say Bo Nix from my heart, but I do truthfully think that as well. The team's just performing good. He's QB8 on the season right now. Drake May's got a lot more shaky of a situation around him, although he looks great for long term.
Yeah. Over the last 3 weeks, Bo Nix is QB5. He's adding a lot on the ground. It looks like he can control the offense. And I will say Bo Nix is definitely somewhere on this list. We're talking about top 12 QBs. And I do not have Drake May on the top 15 for me the rest of the season.
As the resident Bo Nix hater, I would go Drake May. I was very big on Drake May.
And North Carolina fan on top of it.
I'm a North Carolina fan. I was very big on Drake May. I wanted Washington to draft him at 2. I'm very glad they didn't. But I like Drake May's long term. But for the rest of the season, I just feel like his rushing, what he's going to add in the rushing game is a little more sustainable. I will say Bo Nix, and it ain't great, but he clearly has a little better receiving core just with Cortland Sutton there. But I think there's going to be some drop off, and I would go Drake May. Also, and they both have pretty good defenses, but I think the Broncos defense is clearly quite a few notches above the Patriots. So there's just going to be a need. The game script is going to have Drake May scrambling, throwing the ball around just more than I think what we'll see from Bo Nix.
Yeah. Patriots defense isn't in the bottom quarter of the league right now, but they have declined pretty rapidly over the last year or so. All right, this sends it back to Lee. I wonder who he will take here.
So I actually have him as my number 3. I have him behind Lamar and Josh Allen, but I do have him ahead of Hurts, and I actually have another player ahead of Hurts that I may hit on the next go around. But yeah, I'm going Jaden Daniels. I still think I'm a little questionable. Hurts has played really well against some pretty poor competition. Again, he's probably going to have a good game tomorrow night, but I don't know that he's going to light up the fantasy stat sheet. I'm much more concerned about Saquon Barkley, and we'll see. You know, he has gotten his weapons back, so that should help. But I'm still not quite sure we're going to see the Jalen Hurts from 2 years ago, where he really was a league winner. As far as Jaden goes, he's 10 games into his career. Had his worst rushing game of his career last week with only 5 yards, but he's recovering from that rib injury. The Steelers had a really good game plan. They may have the best defense in the NFL. He's not going to play that kind of defense again. You look at the schedule, you get the Cowboys twice. You get the Saints, the Titans, the Falcons, and the Eagles twice. I see him having some really big weeks. And I think he has a really good bounce back game tomorrow night in Philly. He seems to like those bright lights.
Mason, do you have Jaden Daniels in your S tier?
Yes, he's my probably last S tier. There's one.
Yeah.
My next one's kind of on the fence, but this I'd say schedule takes him away from S tier.
Daniels was right on the fence for me for S tier. I do have him there, but I agree that's where the tier gap is right now. Mason, why don't you take away QB5?
Yeah, I'm going to go Burrow. He's currently QB3 right now. I believe that's in 4-point passing touchdown leagues as well. Burrow's been killing it. A little easier schedule start off the year. I think as they continue, this team is barely hanging on to any hope of a playoff chance. So we know how much they throw the ball. They're going to continue to do that. We know Burrow can put up the big numbers. The only downside is the schedule gets tough. It's not a good schedule from here on out. Chargers, Steelers, Dallas, that's a beautiful game, week 14. Then in playoffs, we're going against Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver. Week 18, if you do week 18 playoffs, Pittsburgh again. Not good matchups.
Yeah, and that's in the
talent's still there to where he's still going to give you good games against these tough defenses. There just might be 1 or 2 weeks where it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I personally, when making these rankings, really downgraded people for having multiple tough playoff matchups. Like rest of season rankings, like this is to gear up to win the league. I can't have like at this point. I put a note that I would trade Joe Burrow high. Just came off of an insane game in prime time last Thursday. If you still have your trade deadline open, I would try to send him away right now for a similar tiered QB plus somebody. Uh, I would say you like Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about him at some point here, but he does have the third easiest schedule. You could get Baker plus by sending away Joe Burrow, and I wouldn't be mad at that. Baker Mayfield is not my QB6 here, though. I have Kyler Murray. I actually have him as QB5. He has the 10th easiest schedule moving forward. Uh, Playoff schedule includes New England, Carolina, and the Rams. Does have the bye this week. So maybe if a team that has Kyler, it needs a win this week, you could again try to go trade Joe Burrow plus since you know that team's in a pinch. I'd definitely try to get Kyler on your team moving forward. He looks incredible and just tore apart the Jets defense. Made them look ridiculous. What was his completion percent? Like 26 or 28 passes or something? Kyler Murray completed 22 of 24 passes. Absolutely insane game for him. Where do you guys have Kyler?
I had him as
I
my
have
QB4. I actually would have him in the top tier,
Wow.
above Burrow and above Hurts.
I didn't have him in the S tier, but a solid A on his own.
I still have him around like 7 or 8. I think I'm probably a little more behind him on him, just because I've seen the meltdown year after year from Kyler Murray, and that still just scares me.
I mean,
You know.
Todd came out, so isn't it inevitable?
Hey man, he did good, and when Nuketown Double XP weekend, he still did good.
There you go.
Maybe the
Shredded
curse
it.
is over.
Are you speaking English?
Old man, you
I
don't know.
tracked everything you said.
Not me.
It's nerdinese.
Madden and nothing else. Madden and college football. That's the only thing I know. Video game wise.
All right, back to you, Lee, for QB7.
Yeah, so this might be a little bit of a surprise for you guys, and I really kind of what we were talking about. The playoff schedule is the biggest thing. Where obviously there's a couple of tough games coming up leading into the playoffs with Chicago, San Francisco, the Miami defense playing better, and then the Detroit defense. But then he's got Seattle, New Orleans, and Minnesota for your playoffs. I like Jordan Love as my QB7, and I think he's if you can make it, if you can hang in, because there's probably gonna be a couple of rough weeks. I really like him in those last 3 weeks of the season.
Yep, I also have him QB7.
Next one, gotta say him, of course, Baker Mayfield. QB2 right now, been killing it all season. Obviously, tough week against the Niners. Niners haven't been too generous.
If are Joey Bosa while
Oh,
completing
dude.
a dime.
I was screaming my head off when that was happening because
too.
like I love Baker, but Bosa's getting stiff armed by Baker when they have that
Right.
rivalry. So it hurt me. But anyway, bye week this week. Mike Evans should be back week 12. Their schedule is very generous going forward. Giants, Carolina, Raiders. First week of playoffs is tough. Chargers. If you can get past the first round, then you go to Dallas and Carolina. All those are good teams except one, and Baker's already been killing it at QB2. I could see him. I don't see him finishing as QB2, but really, I could see him finishing top 5.
So
No
real
doubt.
quick, and we'll just I guess consensus. I'm assuming you're keeping them in tier A, Mason.
Yes.
Would you agree, Dan?
I don't. I actually have Kyler Murray on his own in tier A, and then I have Mayfield, Love, and Burrow in tier B.
Okay, I would go tier B for Baker as well here.
Yeah,
I mean, if you guys both say it, we could put him B then. But I do think he is tier A.
he's been proving it this year. He definitely looks incredible, but I just without the weapons, like without Chris Godwin, Otton's stepping up though, bro. Otton's looking great. All right, let's get on with it though. We got Lee. Are you up right now? No, I'm up right
Yeah,
now.
you're up.
We got Bo Nix at QB9. I know it's probably a surprise to everyone but Mason. But Bo Nix, he has the sixth easiest schedule moving forward. Faces Atlanta. So for points against expectation, so weighing in people's averages, Atlanta's 25th, Raiders 24th, Cleveland 7th bye week. And then that's the only tough thing. Week 14 bye week always sucks right before the playoffs. But playoff schedule, Indianapolis, Chargers, and Cincy, 27th, 18th, and 28th. This is a match made in heaven for Bo Nix to end the season strong, bring some teams who may lost a quarterback or just had bad luck drafting them. Bo Nix is your replacement. Go and get him now before it's too late. He just looks the part. He's safe. He doesn't have a crazy high ceiling unless he has that 4 touchdown game, but he's solid. Bo Nix at QB9. Talk your smack, boys.
He is
Mason's gonna love
QB9.
it.
He's QB9 or better. Lee hesitated so long to put him into B tier. Now he's like, oh, he's not B tier, but
He's not.
yes,
B tier?
2 against 1. He's B tier, maybe A tier, maybe S tier. We don't know.
QB5 of the last 3 weeks.
QB5 overall. Let's go.
He deserves his own tier. He needs to have a Jake Bobo tier at the bottom of this. We had went up until this, the
Tier.
7, not in the exact order, but those were my top 7. I do not have Bo Nix in my top 12 or top 15. I did a top 15. I don't have him in my top 15.
So
we'll see.
If we go since week 5, even he is QB6 on since week 5. He has 1 week under 15 points and 3 weeks over at 21 or more points. He's got a solid floor. He's got a decent ceiling. I do like Bo Nix. I think he's underrated. Let's hit QB10. Lee, take it away.
Yeah, we're gonna go with this fella here that's gotten his weapons back. He's got Christian McCaffrey back. They're good. Their defense isn't what it was, so they're gonna have to score more points. I love Juwan Jennings. We touched on that in the pre-show. I'm gonna go Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean,
Can't
Purdy's
argue
just a safe pick, and McCaffrey's back, so touchdowns are going to start coming back in the red zone.
Yeah, easy dump
Hopefully.
offs, big gains. All right, QB11. Who do you got, Mason?
This is, I think, the first kind of drop off. I think this is the first C tier to me. But you could argue B, but I'm gonna go Goff. I mean, obviously, Goff terrible week last week. It was 5 interceptions, right? But I mean, and
I don't have it up in front, but
it was 5 interceptions. I've just got to ask. I'm curious if you guys saw this. So somebody made up a stat after this happened. It was actually at halftime of the game. They on Twitter they posted that Jared Goff has had 6 games up until this point with at least 5 interceptions, and he's 6-0, and he ended up being 7-0. On Pat McAfee's show, Aaron Rodgers came on and shared that stat and was like, "Can you believe that? That just shows why stats don't mean anything. Completely made up. Not a true stat."
Oh man, Aaron Rodgers.
But he does his research.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
So funny.
Like Goff obviously hasn't been the best for fantasy for the most part this season. They've been a lot more run heavy. He's still got great weapons around him. Schedule going towards the end isn't the most friendly to quarterbacks, but a lot of these are going to be very tough games where the game script is going to be forcing Goff to throw the ball a lot more. I mean, they got Indy and Jags. That's pretty easy. Chicago rivalry game. Never know. Those are always close games. Buffalo, Green Bay, Chicago again. San Francisco and Minnesota. These are going to be high leverage games where I think Goff is going to be finally throwing the ball a lot more than he definitely has been this season.
B or C, guys, real quick.
C. He's a C.
Yeah.
C.
All right. So I got QB 12 here. I'm going with Justin Herbert. This is crazy because we're now leaving Patrick Mahomes and CJ Stroud off the list. Both guys drafted in the top 6 QBs at the beginning of the year. And obviously, Patrick Mahomes got the name value. But Justin Herbert's been getting it done since the bye. Since his bye in week 5, he's the QB8. Since that time, the pass volume has gone up. The connection with McConkey and QJ has been there. I feel like they're playing their roles well. They're like acclimating to the NFL finally. And then even Will Disley gets a little bit sprinkled in there every now and then. So I like Justin Herbert moving forward. Add some more with his legs too. If you haven't seen last week's game, I feel like he looks more confident as a runner when he wants to do that, and we've always seen that in in Harbaugh offense. So always had a rushing quarterback to add a little bit. I imagine you guys didn't put Justin Herbert in your top 12.
I did 15. I don't know. I got the wrong sheet. I did 15, not 12. Damn it.
I got 15, but we only have time for 12 QBs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had him as 15. I didn't have him as top 12. I had him as 15. My QB, actually, I had Mahomes at 11 would be the one difference. I still got to put Mahomes up there. I know it's been rocky fantasy-wise. 2 weeks ago it was good. Played a really tough Denver defense, but it's coming back. Kelsey's getting into season shape. I'm not sure. But with Hopkins added there, kind of opens up Worthy to be that hit or miss guy. But I like Mahomes the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, I mean it's Mahomes. He's gonna do the job. They just have a good enough defense. It just hasn't been working for a while. So we'll see how it goes. Let's get on to running backs though. Last time Lee started off quarterback, so Mason start off running backs.
All right, give me one second. Pull my list. Well, obviously, I don't know why I even have to say pull up my list. Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Just no argument. MVP talks for a running back. Obviously, he's not going to win it, but when some running back's name is even mentioned in that conversation, you know what kind of season they're having.
Yeah. And Henry, he has the 27th easiest schedule moving forward. He faced the 26th easiest so far. So no worries there. Oh my God. All right. I'm going to take running back.
Commanders as the number one every single time, aren't you?
You're going to see a theme here.
I'm going to kick off RB2. We got Saquon Barkley. This was a very close decision for me. I don't know who you guys have as RB3, but RB3 and RB2 are very close for me. Barkley has such an easy schedule, has been just dominating for the most part. He didn't have as big of a week as we would have liked to seen him have last week, but fifth easiest schedule moving forward. Guy is a volume hog. Who do you got as RB3, Lee Cook?
Yeah, so one, I had Barkley as one. I had him over Derrick Henry just because we're 2 games against Washington. They've been terrible against running backs, and I like the schedule a little bit more. The Ravens have 2 games against Pittsburgh. That was really the determining factor for me there. As far as RB3, this might be a little bit of a reach, and you guys may disagree, and I'm not sure I can find him in the picture. Maybe that's him. I don't know if that's him or not.
He's already up there. Oh, Kyron, you got him. Okay.
Yeah, Kyron Williams. The volume at the goal line. I think the Rams with getting those offensive pieces back actually helps Kyron, and I think he finishes strong. I love the couple of startup dynasties where I got him in a discount this past offseason because in dynasty he might be RB3 as well.
Yeah. 43 attempts inside the red zone, leads the league by 7 attempts, has 8 touchdowns in there, and gets some passing work as well. He is number 3 in terms of targets for running backs inside the red zone. So definitely love Kyron Williams. Mason, who do you have as your RB4?
McCaffrey. I mean,
That's who I had as RB3.
Already, last week, being on a limited workload, he played 88% of offensive snaps. So,
Yep.
that's limited for him, I guess.
Right.
But already putting up 16.7 points in PPR leagues. No touchdown. Those are going to come on frequency as he gets more going. This was a warm-up week for McCaffrey, and he already pretty much dropped 17 points.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I agree. They immediately gave him the full workload. He had 13 of the 15 running back snaps or carries and all of the running back targets in this game. I think without Brandon Ayuk, we've talked about it before, lead wide receiver goes down. A lot of those targets end up going to the running back, and McCaffrey's already getting targeted a ton. All
I was
right.
scared of McCaffrey. I had him down at running back 8. I'm going to assume you guys want him in the S tier, but I'd put him in the A tier if I
Oh yeah, he's S tier, dude.
He's
He's
S tier
league
for
winner.
sure. There's only one other S tier running back, in my opinion, rest of season, and that is Bijan Robinson. I got him as my RB4. He has the 19th easiest schedule moving forward, so pretty middle of the pack. But Bijan has been turning it on in these later games. Last 5 games, he has 24, 21.8, 20.1, 18, and 27.9 points in half PPR leagues. Guy is tearing it up. They're finally. I hope the Falcons learned their lesson. If you guys didn't watch that game, they gave Algier the ball at on the 1 yard line, 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal, all stopped, and then Bijan puts it in on 4th and goal. Why not use that first round running back on one of the first 2 downs here? So Bijan, though, he's incredible, even though middle of the pack schedule. I think that he is going to turn it on in the back half.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's almost like Arthur Smith was still calling the plays on that, but Algier hasn't been bad. I just don't see how he's getting as much usage as he is. For me, I would have one more person in the S tier, and it would be Jahmyr Gibbs. He's my next guy up. He's running back 5 on the season. He hasn't had under double-digit points any game this year. Montgomery scares you because he is getting a little bit more of the goal line work, but and the passing work is not as consistent because of how well this Detroit defense has played. I do see some drop off in the Detroit defense coming, especially as you get into a little bit harder, divisional matchups. You get deeper in the season. You got a Buffalo game and a San Francisco game added in, Cincinnati game, who we know their defense sucks, but they can score points. So I just think the need to score points is going to be increased a little bit. And I like Jahmyr Gibbs as an S tier. I'll let you guys decide if you agree or if he should be the A tier.
I personally have him as A tier because of the shared workload. It's just everybody else in the S tier has that guaranteed volume and has efficiency. So Jahmyr Gibbs not having one of the two, I did drop him down a tier.
Yeah, I would say drop him to A just because Montgomery is going to take away touches and touchdowns as well. So.
He is top of this tier for sure, though. I had him as 4B behind Bijan, and that's the only person I did a A and B for in my rankings.
You guys
Mason,
still taking Bijan over Gibbs in Dynasty, or do you think about it a little bit more right now?
I mean, they just re-signed Montgomery, so I'm going Bijan.
Tyler Algier still on his rookie deal. He's going to be there for 2 more years, probably.
Is it 2 more years?
No, I think he's got one more. But the way they're going, they're going to re-sign him next year.
I would take it Dynasty just because there's a lot more uncertainty with what really is going on in Atlanta in the future. Not with him, but just kind of around him, Kirk Cousins, Penix. We don't know what's really going on in this organization. So that just would worry me a little more. I'd say that kind of scares me a little bit, but they're pretty interchangeable.
I mean, they're 1-2. I don't think there's a debate right now for anybody other than those 2 guys as the top 2 is
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Bijan and I had Gibbs and you gave me an argument why I should take Bijan instead, I'd probably be like, okay. Or other way around, you just gave me one argument, I'd probably be like, okay, because they're pretty at least future-wise. This year it's different. But my next one, it might be a little bit ahead. I'm going to say Kamara. I don't know what you guys think about that. I mean, Kamara's been killing it. RB2 right now. He was playing with a broken hand during a part of the season. His workload went down when that first started happening. But if you look at it, the receiving game, it's still there. the running workload is pretty much still there for the most part. His efficiency's gone down a little bit, but he's getting enough carries where it's still going to make up for it. And just the receiving work is totally worth it. This is at least in PPR, it's totally 100%. He's up there. The touchdowns this year have been very disappointing besides week 2. I think that somewhat fixes this. Saints team offense can't get much worse than it's kind of been these past like 4 or 5 weeks. I see some touchdowns going forward, and the schedule's pretty easy towards the end of the season, at least playoffs wise. Week 14 Giants, Washington, who like I said, Washington defense is improving, so whatever. Green Bay's
The
a
run
tough one.
defense is susceptible. The pass defense has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, but and then Vegas for week 17. So decent matchups, but just the volume is there between the receiving and rushing game.
I don't have him quite as high. I have him RB10. So a little bit of a drop for me, but Lee, where do you have him?
11. So we're right there about the same.
Yeah.
There's just
All
a few
right.
guys I like more rest of the season, and just I don't know. You get that bump from firing your coach, but the Saints are just a dumpster fire right now.
Yeah.
I will say with Olave
no.
out, they've got nobody else to give the ball to, so volume will be there.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's got a single game where he's had under 5 catches. Oh yeah, so week 2 and week 3 he had 2 receptions on 3 targets, 3 receptions on 3 targets, and that was with Olave there, I believe, because he suffered a concussion early in the season too.
Okay. All right. I am internally debating between 2 of my players. I actually have I have Joe Mixon ranked as RB7, but I think I'm going to pull an audible here. I have James Conner right behind him. Joe Mixon has a week 14 bye, which sucks. Then he plays Miami, Kansas City, and Baltimore. Kansas City and Baltimore are very tough run defenses. You don't want that in your semi and championship game. So I'm pulling the shift to James Conner, who I had right behind him. He has New England, Carolina, and the Rams, and he's on his bye week right now. So moving forward, I'd rather have that bye week right now in week 11 and get my boys back. He also has Seattle in week 14. Overall, James Conner has the 4th easiest schedule moving forward compared to Mixon at 21st. So James Conner as a last second audible. What are you guys? How you feeling about that?
I was between Mixon, and I thought you were going to say the same player I'm on, but no.
Taylor?
I have Connor a little further down. I got Connor at 12.
Jonathan Taylor?
I would vote B tier for Connor.
Yeah, Connor's a B
go
tier for me. I think there's a lot of people ahead of him.
If you guys don't already know, if you haven't looked at it, where is James Conner on the season?
He's 9.
Very close, but yeah, at least in my half PPR formats, RB8. I don't know. I think he's appropriate right here, but that's fine. Who do you guys got instead? Lee, I believe you're up.
So yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. The next 2 guys are interchangeable, but you have convinced me to go with the non-Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has been phenomenal. Those are a couple of hard matchups. And this guy doesn't have great matchups either, but his receiving work has just been so consistent, especially when 2 has been in there. Give me Devon Achane. The guy's got 19 receptions over the last 3 games. He's getting enough of the rushing work, but just that receiving work, I think right now I've got him at RB13 as far as where he's at season wide, and I see him climbing into the top 8 range by the end of the season, just especially if that receiving work continues, and he's so darn explosive.
He is. Great schedule. I also had him near there. I got 2 guys ahead of him. One of them we talked about, Joe Mixon, and I'm curious if Mason's next player is the guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah, mine's Joe Mixon. I don't know how he's. In my opinion, he is A tier, or at least top of B tier. Just the touchdown volume is there. Stroud is not doing the best, but he's shown enough that they are able to move the ball down the field well enough to at least get it down there. And Mixon's got a touchdown every single game, I believe, except week 2 where he got injured. That is the only, and I believe he got injured at like the 1 or something like that. But I mean, he's just a touchdown monster, and he's getting enough workload. Week 1, 30 carries. Week 2, injury, 9 carries. His first week back, only 13. Then 25, 25, 24, 25. He is a workhorse for a team that can move the ball down the field.
Yeah. It goes along with it, but yeah, I don't think Mixon has been outside of the top 12 RBs every week that he's been healthy.
Week 15 and week 9. That was the only one that he was not. RB 15 in week 9. I don't know. I said that weird, but yeah, that was his only besides the injury week.
You're right. And then
disagree.
in half PP, you said you disagree?
No, I said I don't. I had him at
yeah.
RB 7, ahead of McCaffrey, but just behind A-Chain.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that unfortunate bye week timing and the bad playoff schedule, he would have been my RB7 as well. All right. This is the guy that I was kind of debating, Jonathan Taylor. I do think that he also belongs in that top 10 conversation. I have him one spot ahead of Devon Achane. I do think that if we are dealing with Anthony Richardson moving forward, who knows how productive this offense will be that will take away from him. At the same time, Jonathan Taylor is a supreme athlete, still one of those guys that can rip off one of those like week changing runs anywhere on the field. And we know Anthony Richardson doesn't have high passing volume. Some of the other thing is if Richardson is the starter moving forward, and he was announced that for week 11. If he is the starter moving forward, when he does make his completions, they are giant bomb touchdowns, which also take away from Jonathan Taylor. So both things, I would say overall a negative for Jonathan Taylor. However, he's a beast. He's got the 13th easiest schedule moving forward. I think that this is going to be the worst week. And he plays the Jets. Jets are a little bit susceptible to the run, but after that, I'm sorry, Detroit's the hardest game, and then New England, Denver, Tennessee, and the Giants. I like Jonathan Taylor. He is my RB9 personally.
So I dropped him way down. I have him at RB 15, and honestly, I thought I might have him a little bit high. He has one game this season inside the top 10, and Anthony Richardson, just like you said, the offense just seems so broken when he's in there. He can steal some of the rushing yards. He's a big threat to steal rushing touchdowns, and he doesn't dump the ball off. He can't complete that 3-yard flat to Jonathan Taylor. I'd be worried about him the rest of the season.
I don't know. He has 2 games under 88 rushing yards specifically. And in those games, he added a little bit of passing work. One of those games was the first game of the season as well. I don't know. I think that he's got the upside still, personally. Mason, where do you sit on him?
You're
muted.
The upside's there because they might be banking off of him if Richardson continues to be that terrible, where they might just run the crap out of the ball. But like Lee said, not getting the receiving work is very worrying because Richardson can't throw at all.
Yeah. And in half PPR, he's got only 1 game inside the top 10, but he has 5 games inside the top 15. So he's still contributing to your team. All right, let's get on to the next one here. Believe we're on RB12. Is that correct? 1, 2, 3.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You started off at least third. We got RB12 with Lee Cook. Take it away.
This is one I've debated some, really between 2 guys for me. The lack of a defense, and I believe in the talent. He's been no, actually, I missed a guy. Scratch that. I'm not going to do that guy. I'm going to go James Cook.
That's what I have.
Just committed to the run. We've seen how much this team likes to run. It's an explosive offense. Forget everything I just said. James Cook's a guy who he's just produced. He's having his best year as a pro. Still would like to see more goal line work, but he's so explosive. He's a guy that I really feel comfortable about for Dynasty for the next year or two as well.
Yeah, no, I like James Cook. Very explosive and on a team that runs the ball a lot.
My next one, I think I'm going to go with Brees Hall. Currently sitting as RB8 in PPR. Nothing too flashy this season, really. Only one game in the top 5 and 2 other in the top 10. A big thing that has convinced me towards that, though, is the rest of the season schedule. Bye week is in week 12, though disappointing. Indy next week. Seattle's tough. Miami, Jags. Jags for week 1 of playoffs. Rams is a tough one, and then Buffalo, who struggled against the run this year. Brees Hall has a good floor, at least. That's the thing. He's never a terrible play. Braylon Allen could maybe get a little more work in. Between that and just the fact that he hasn't done anything super amazing this season, makes me just drop him back. But the talent's there, and the workload is still there for the most part. Not as much as it has been, but in the receiving game it is. It's dropped back the last couple of weeks, but I don't expect that to continue.
Yeah, I had him in the same spot, same explanation. Great schedule, and he's talented. They need to figure it out.
Just curious, one last interjection. We'll speed run through the last half of this, but I brought up a couple of dynasty questions. He was pretty much unquestionably a top 3 dynasty running back going into the season. Him, Bijan, and Gibbs. I've dropped him a little bit lower in dynasty. I would take Kyron over him in dynasty. I would take Devon Achane over him in dynasty. Curious what your guys' thoughts on those two guys potentially over the long term.
I think his dynasty value definitely drops because Braylon Allen. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm holding true at RB3. I do think Braylon Allen will miss in, but overall, I think that he defense and running the ball is still more of the identity. They feed him so much. If they could only just draft an offensive line, or you're New York, go spend your money, do whatever you need to do. Go get an offensive line. They just got Elijah Vera Tucker back, though, so hopefully that can make a little bit of a difference moving forward.
Fair enough.
Right. Sorry?
I said fair enough.
Word. All right, so I have Kenneth Walker up next. Don't want to spoil anything, but it was very close for me and Josh Jacobs. Walker gets a similar amount of volume when truly healthy. 76% of snaps, 25 carries last week, and he has the ability to be more explosive than Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs just hasn't had that efficiency. That's where I'll cap it.
Yeah, that was the guy I was between. I'd actually just overlooked James Cook, but that was the guy. I've got him a bit higher as well. I actually have Kenneth Walker above Kamara, Brees Hall, and James Conner, just because he's been a little inconsistent this year, but I do feel like he's going to finish strong. And this is a team that has a chance to push to the playoffs. But next up, you kind of.
I just want to jump in for Kenneth Walker real quick, though. With Walker, just the playoff schedule is what scares me away entirely. Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago.
I will say that the Bears' defense has been much better against the pass than the run. They do provide a bit of a run for them. If you can make it past Minnesota's the scary one because they have a top-tier run defense. I think Green Bay's middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack right now, 13th against expectation. Chicago's 22nd at this point, but Minnesota is that scary one.
Minnesota's what?
Minnesota's 3rd for points against expectation.
All right, is it me up now? Or is it Lee?
Yes,
no,
it's you. Lee just went.
Yeah, I just went.
It was Walker, then who?
Josh Jacobs.
Oh, you just didn't put him on. That's what. Yeah.
Do we put Jacobs in B or are we dropping him in C?
We didn't talk about Jacobs. I said a little something about Jacobs. You basically agree though? Like Jacobs
Yeah,
just
that's why
so
I said you stole my thunder, but I didn't elaborate on
okay.
it.
I got you. I got you.
I
So
said
we
more
got
in my head.
I'd say Jacobs is either the last of B tier or C tier. Like I think everyone else, like after that, that's where I kind of start dropping off, especially my next one.
I just think the touchdowns are going to come. The volume has been there. It's a good offense. I mean, it doesn't really have anybody taking away carries of any consequence. So
yeah.
that's where
He
that's
was
where I'm
even
at.
efficient with Malik, or not efficient, but decently for Josh Jacobs. Mildly efficient with Malik Willis under center. So hopefully Love stays healthy. I also have him in the B tier right now. But who do you got up next, Mason?
For C tier, I'm gonna say Chase Brown. That's my first move down
Whoa.
into that. Had a great week last week. He's been, I've been high on him all year, all off season. Currently RB13 last 2 weeks in PPR leagues. This last week RB3, the week before RB4. He's getting the receiving work now with Zach Moss out, and that's huge. That's what's carrying him. This last week against Baltimore, tough running defense. He excelled in the passing game. 2 weeks before, played against against Vegas in week 9, 120 yards, did great on the ground. I mean, he's shown he can do both. That even against tough running defenses, he's going to get the receiving work. He's got a lot of upside too. I think he's a very safe middle of the ground RB2 going forward with a ton of upside.
It's a bit high
I
for
don't
me
have
for Brown. I had him at running back 24. He did sneak into my rankings, but I'm just I'm concerned as far as the touchdown opportunity, just with how much Burrow's throwing it, the deep passes. I don't know if Khalil Herbert's going to take away much, but again, this team's going to be throwing the ball so much. He's got to sustain that passing game work to really return value at this point, or really to
Chase
be a
Brown has had one game. So from week 4 through 10, he's had one game where he hasn't scored a touchdown, and in one of them he scored 2.
I feel like they brought in Khalil Herbert for a reason. I think I don't know where exactly it's going to take away, but I do feel like there's going to be some loss in production. I personally have him as RB21. I do also think it's a little bit high just because I think there are some more reliable names out there. Um, the next player that I have up personally is David Montgomery. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, easy schedule. David Montgomery has been so reliable so far, a part of an amazing offense. And it's still like Laporta hasn't been as involved as most of us thought he would be. Jameson Williams, he'll be coming back off of the suspension this week. He's been very productive when playing and active, but I don't think that David Montgomery's role is going anywhere. So love David Montgomery for the value got him at. I don't have the ADP up in front of me, but he was like a 7th or 8th round pick. So great draft pick there. Curious to see where you guys have Montgomery. We'll find out as we unveil some players. Lee, you are up next. Who do you have?
Yeah, so for me, it was the last, and I love Montgomery as well. The consistency's there. You guys can call me a homer. He has been hurt. That's been the problem. But when he's played, he has scored touchdowns. And it's not just those fluky big play touchdowns. What?
Jeremy McNichols?
No. Brian Robinson, hoping he's healthy for tomorrow night. But even if not, you get that mini bye week. Just you look at last week against a really good Steelers run defense. The running back position had 3 touchdowns for Washington. Robinson gets the carries inside the 5 when he's in there. He runs hard. This is a team that wants to run the ball first. I like Robinson rest of the year. And again, I like how the schedule plays out. The Titans pass defense has been pretty good. The run defense has been susceptible. The Saints, the Cowboys twice, Falcons, Eagles twice. I could see him scoring quite a few touchdowns, and I do think they're going to utilize him. He's missed some weeks, but I think he'll be back fully healthy, and he'll be a guy who really produces at the end of the year.
Yeah, I only have one player listed ahead of him. I'll let Mason take it away with his next ranking, and then I'll maybe plug that guy in.
My next one's gonna be Tyrone Tracy. Lee was right about him. I'll say that. It was someone Lee was, one of those later guys that Lee was kind of investing to, trying to get us to on the train, and I didn't listen really much until it was too late, where everyone else was starting to get on the train. He's been looking good. I mean, a little inconsistent, but that's the Giants. Right here at this point, you're looking for your RB2. This is your RB2 kind of range, guys. The rest of season schedule, though, is pretty nice. We got bye week this week, Tampa, Dallas, New Orleans, Baltimore the first week of playoffs. That's not great. And then we got Atlanta and Indy to finish it off. The thing that is worrying is the receiving work is not there. That's just it's not there at all. The thing is Singletary's dropping out of existence for the most part. Got a little bit of work last week, but Tyrone Tracy is just getting the volume. He's going to get the red zone touchdowns when they get the opportunity to actually get down there. I just think with the schedule they have going forward and what he's been showing the last couple of weeks, the efficiency's at least there, even if the fantasy points aren't.
Yeah. I have one guy listed ahead of both of them, and Tracy was my next running back up. I have Aaron Jones. And Lee, you can rebuttal. It looked like you had something to put in there.
No,
But,
I was just going to add Tracy's over 5 yards a carry. I would have liked to see more receiving work from a guy who played receiver up until the last year or two of college. But I do think Drew Lock taking over. I don't know if that's been confirmed, but that's all the talk that is going to be Drew Lock. They're going to sit Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones tends to run, when he's in those pressure situations. Drew Lock is going to dump the ball off in those situations. He doesn't have that kind of mobility. I do think we see an uptick in the receiving work, and just over 5 yards a carry for a rookie on a terrible offense with a shitty offensive line and not a lot of other threats is very impressive.
Yeah. I do think Locke has a tendency to just chuck when he's under pressure rather than dump off. But I do hear what you're saying. The passing work can really only go up. He's had 1 reception in each of the last 2 weeks and then 2 and 3 before that. So I do think that there's a little bit of change in philosophy and they get him more involved there. But Aaron Jones right now moving forward has the 17th easiest schedule moving forward. He's been so involved. He has no less than 14 carries since the bye. He's always mixed in 2 to 4 catches. The guy had a rib injury. He was carted off. I thought it was I wasn't watching that game, to be honest. It was very boring. But the cart got me worried. I don't even have any shares of Aaron Jones, but that's always worrying. But he got back on the field before the game ended. He's limited already on a Wednesday practice. For a running back that's 29 to be limited after getting carted off the week before, he's good. He's fine. He'll be playing this. I'm not a doctor, but I think he'll be playing this week. And I believe they already passed their bye as well. So Aaron Jones has been RB16 so far in his last 3 games: Chicago, Seattle, Green Bay. That's the only downside is Green Bay is the final game. We talked about how they are a tough run D. Let's get to the next guy.
The injury scares me a little, and just the Vikings have not looked as good since that first loss. So a little worrying, but
Sam Darnold's pumpkining. He's pumpkining.
We've all been waiting.
We've been waiting.
We're waiting. Clock's ticking. I have a specific running back up next. I'm curious to see where you guys have them ranked. Mason, Lee, you are up.
Yeah, I'm up, and I'm between 2. The lack of efficiency here lately worries me, but this is a team that likes to run the ball first. It's a run-first head coach. I'm not really scared of Gus Edwards at this point. I'll go J.K. Dobbins for my next guy.
Okay. That's interesting. I had him towards the back end of this 25 ranking at 25. Mason, where did you
dropping the D?
I had him a couple spots back.
Yeah, I don't think most people have this guy as high as I do right now. But Mason, who is your next running back up? RB 22.
Um, it might be a little high too. I think it's the first drop to D tier in my opinion. You guys can disagree if you guys think there's a couple more in C tier. Um, but I'm gonna go Chuba Hubbard. I mean, damn, he looks good this year.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
extension good.
yeah, the schedule is awesome for playoffs. So Dallas, Arizona, Tampa, all giving up a lot to running backs this season. Um, I mean, Jonathan Brooks is coming back, but they just extended to Hubbard. That's a big deal for a guy. You're not going to not use him, and you know Brooks is a young guy. They're going to probably ease him back for the rest of the season. The season's already over. Bryce is looking better. He's the last 2 weeks. He's looked actually like solid, like a young guy you can have faith in to improve. I'm gonna just go with him. I mean, he's had 5 weeks this season where he's been at least RB 10, and only two games where he hasn't finished as a top 24 all season. Like, I mean, at this range, like it's good. Just the Brooks thing is worrying. That's really it.
Yeah, I mean, the production's been there. It's just, what are you doing, Carolina? You're drafting a guy. It's a second round, and then you're extending Chuba Hubbard. They could have spent that pick in a lot better spot. Brooks coming back does worry me as they work him back into the offense. But Chuba's been great, and he's been a great late round draft pick if you took him.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite picks, is taking Hit, Chuba, and Jonathan Brooks. So I feel like I got such a value with the Chuba pick, but I basically burned my Jonathan Brooks pick that happened a few rounds earlier.
Maybe we'll see. We will see.
We'll see. We will see.
Or
I
Brooks
still
comes
have
back
faith that
and
he's
gets
gonna
just
take
enough of
over,
the
but-
workload where neither one of them have any value, and then you're just screwed in the playoffs.
Yep, and that's probably what'll happen right in time for the playoffs. All right. So the guy that I had that I was teasing earlier, Isaiah Pacheco, seventh easiest schedule moving forward. He was just activated off of the IR within the last 2 days. Doesn't look like he's going to be likely to play this week against Buffalo. Would have been a juicy matchup, but if he gets back next week, he's got Carolina and the Raiders. The Chargers will be a very difficult matchup in Week 14. But if you manage to get by that and get into the playoffs, you got Cleveland, Houston, and Pittsburgh. The Chiefs, yeah, Pittsburgh, they're a tough defense, but right now, points against expectation, they are 21st against the running back position. So there's room for wiggle room there. The Chiefs are a great defense and can make some of those tougher run defenses that I mentioned, like the Chargers, Cleveland, even Pittsburgh, if you consider them that, they can make those offenses look bad, control the clock, control the field position, run the ball. They do that well. That's really what they've been banking on for a long time. And Kareem Hunt can do that in short yardage situations, but he doesn't have the pop that Pacheco has. Chiefs are trying to go for a three-peat. Their only focus right now is to get him ready for playoffs. They're not bringing him back if he's less than 100%. So when he comes back, no matter when that is, no, you get the full Pacheco moving forward. Even if it's 2 weeks moving forward, I trust Pacheco in those tough matchups. So
If I can't get the full Pacheco, I don't want any Pacheco.
yeah, no one wants a half Pacheco.
Nobody
It's
wants
like,
half a Pacheco.
yeah, it's like 3 times the dinero, but what's the dinero worth anymore?
Right. To wrap up running backs and wrap up our show for the Atlanta radio, I go Najee Harris. They're committed to the run. Traditionally, he has been better in the second half of the season. The offense looks better. It's a really good defense, so they're going to be in positive game script to run the ball. Jalen Warren's getting worked back in a little bit, but Najee's going to get all the goal line work. And again, just traditionally over his career, he's a better second half of the season running back.
The only thing I'd be worried about is he did bang up his ankle a little bit in this past week, and he does have the worst schedule for rest of season. But we do appreciate all of y'all out there. We're gonna wrap it up for the Atlanta radio broadcast. Appreciate you out there at 99.1. If you guys want to stick around, check out the YouTube right now. We're about to hit some wide receivers. I am gonna kick it off this round. kicking off the S tier, Jamar Chase really has been so above and beyond the rest of the competition. It's we don't see things like this very frequently, but wide receiver one right now. Why there we go. So he has 45 more points than Justin Jefferson right now in standard leagues and half PPR leagues. He is 52 points ahead of Justin Jefferson. Guys, a point hog. Obviously, this last week went very far for him. On the season, he has a 49.9 point week and a 36.3 point week in half PPR. That really is carrying him quite some ways. There's been some disappointing weeks, specifically 4 weeks under 10 points in half PPR leagues, but that upside is what you live for. If you just had Jamar Chase in your lineup last week, you won your matchup. And I know because I had Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers, and it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. I couldn't have had anybody mixing in there when you start off your week on Thursday with 50 points from Jamar Chase. That'll do it. That'll do it. So I have just extended that long enough for Lee to get back. Lee,
Thank you.
why don't you take it away? Wide receiver 2 on the season for you.
All right. So you went Jamar Chase, is that right?
Yeah, Jamar Chase.
Okay. So first, we're going to remove Jake Bobo, and we're going to remove Terry McLaurin, but not for long. And put Jamar Chase. I'm like guessing on some of these guys. You don't see them without their helmet on a lot. You know, so,
It should be kind of ordered in like their rankings of what they are so far this season.
Yeah, right.
so I'm nervous with Sam Darnold. The offense seems to be pumpkining, but Justin Jefferson is as quarterback proof as any wide receiver in the history of the NFL.
Yep. Love
That's
it.
all. Justin Jefferson is really good at football.
This is where I feel like it gets interesting. Mason, who do you have up next? Wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I think honestly after that, I want to say it's A tier after that. There's a lot of A tiers, a lot of great guys I think coming up, but I think Chase and Jefferson are the two guys that they're just different, you know.
Agreed. No one's in their class.
And then there's some guys I'd say interchangeable, but I'm gonna go ahead and say Amon Ra. Surprise pick from me, but the volume's there. I mean, he's had 2 really bad weeks. One's against Tennessee, but that was with Snead on him. Even though Goff hasn't been throwing it as much, Amon Ra's still getting a lot of targets his way. He's got a touchdown in, I believe it's 7 games straight now. That's not gonna. He's not gonna get one every single game, but they're using him in the red zone, and that's kind of what they've been using. I mean, if you think about it, what's been their red zone plan? Run it in or throw it to Amon. That's kind of been their plan the last 6-7 weeks. So going forward, we should see a lot more touchdowns, continued targets, high target share when they do throw the ball. And like I said, I do think that they will be put in situations where they'll be throwing the ball a lot more towards the end of the season.
Yeah. I mean, they're there frequently. Detroit is 0.2 points behind Baltimore for most points in the league per game. So they're there frequently. I don't mind that pick at all. Amon-Ra St. Brown, it feels like he's just been lacking a little bit of the upside. He's got, in half PPR, he's got 1 game above 20 points, but very consistently in the teens. I have Malik Neighbors listed ahead of him. He's my wide receiver 3. Right now we have him as wide receiver 4 on this list. Agreed with the A tier. The rest of the season is just so juicy.
Hold up. Yeah, Lee, I know why you're probably saying that.
No, my mind is just blown. But both of these picks, like I was going to go, St. Brown is like 7 for me. The upside's been lacking. I've got Malik Neighbors back at 17.
17?
17.
Why?
Because
I got him at 14, so I'm pretty far back as well.
I just don't know what this offense looks like with Drew Lock. It may be a little better. It may be worse. I this is just a team playing for a draft pick, and I do think his value will skyrocket if they can hit on a quarterback. But as bad as Daniel Jones has been, who knows? Like Drew Lock set journeyman, he looked pretty okay for Seattle for a couple of games. I'm worried that they're going to completely quit on the season and just mail it in.
Okay. Well, for Malik Neighbors, second easiest schedule moving forward. Again, points against expectation after his bye week this week. Tampa Bay 29th, Dallas 19th, Saints 18th, Baltimore 32, Atlanta 22nd, and Indianapolis 23rd. All plus matchups. All Drew Lock at the bare minimum is that Jameis Winston type where he's going to make mistakes. He's going to throw interceptions, specifically pick sixes. He's pretty good at it. But it's going to be a lot of passing, I believe. I don't think that they're going to be in game scripts ever really in those games where they are going to be able to just run the ball. Maybe against Dallas, since it's going to be Cooper Rush the rest of the year, but the rest of those teams are going to get to early leads. I think that Neighbors get some more downfield shots specifically, which we know he's amazing at from his time at LSU. Just has Daniel Jones throwing him the ball so far this year, and he is not very capable of hitting on those downfield passes. So I got Neighbors. Let's get on to wide receiver 5, though. Lee, you are nope. Mason?
No, it's Lee.
Lee.
I have real quick before I do my 5. I like Marvin Harrison rest of the year over Malik Neighbors, just because of the situation, being tied to Kyler Murray. The Cardinals are playing pretty decent ball. They seem to be getting. There was that off week, but 2 of the last 3 weeks have been really solid for Harrison. I think he overtakes him as the best rookie wide receiver by end of season. But for this pick, for wide receiver 5, I'm going to go with the guy who is wide receiver 5 on the season, a guy who has languished in quarterback hell for far too long, and we've seen the connection. I'd like to see him break off that long touchdown to get in the end zone. He gets tripped up on the 1, but the difference this year, they're still targeting him. Even when they're throwing inside the 5, he's the first read. Give me scary Terry McLaurin on his way to his career year, and it could not happen for a better guy.
I have him at 6, but
I have him as wide receiver 10. I have a couple of guys ranked ahead of him, specifically because a tough rest of season schedule. Love Terry though, and this has been my favorite year. Finally gets his certified stud throwing the ball to him.
all right. Number 6. He's coming back. Nico Collins.
Yep, I got him there too.
I mean, not the greatest schedule going forward. But still, I mean, what he was doing when he was healthy, CJ Stroud obviously needs somebody. Diggs is out. Nico should get back to his numbers. He might not be as, top of the pack as he was, but I still expect a lot of consistent production from him once he's back.
Yeah, and it is the 10th easiest schedule for points against expectation. Tough playoff.
He's next to Devontae Lee.
All right, so the guy I have after Nico here, I actually have him a couple
more
times.
dream.
I just see you like closely looking, trying to.
So I have AJ Brown here. I have him as wide receiver 4. He has the 4th easiest schedule moving forward. He's missed some time due to injury, but he's been productive when he is on the field. AJ Brown connected to Hurts. Goddard's in and out. Devonta Smith right now he's playing through it. He's good for Thursday night, but he's playing through an injury. So I like AJ Brown moving forward.
Yeah, so I jumped the gun a little bit because this guy is my wide receiver 3. I have Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver 4 for the rest of the season. But I got excited. I felt like you guys had disrespected my boy, not putting him in that top 4. But I like Drake London as my next wide receiver. another guy who finally has a confident quarterback. I do think we continue to see Kirk Cousins improve, and he's shown that Drake is his first read. And I mean, he's elevated another guy we'll talk about, Darnell Mooney. But this is a pass first offense. They throw the ball a lot, even with Bijan and Algier back there. So give me Drake London, a guy who you wanted to sell a few weeks ago, Dan Baker. Daniel.
I'm selling him high. This is the whole thing. I think that everyone is. I don't have Drake London this high. I personally have him as wide receiver 13.
13. 13.
Yes, sir. I love Drake London. I drafted him in my rookie draft and have been cheering for him from the get. Love his situation long term. But right now we talked about how the Washington defense is tightening up. I do think that he plays Falcons playoff schedule is Raiders, Giants, Washington. As appealing as that sounds, I think that the Falcons are going to run the ball down the throats of Raiders and the Giants. And Washington is a much lighter run matchup than they are pass matchup, especially like we're talking about if they get all their corners healthy, if Marshawn Lattimore can add and acclimate himself to this defense, I think they could be a problem. So I personally have Drake London a little bit lower. He's got Denver this week, then a bye, then the Chargers, and then a tough playoff matchup. Minnesota even can hold their own, but right now they're 28 points against expectation.
Their cornerbacks are terrible.
So I'm gonna agree with Lee on this. So I have a question. Do you know Darnell Mooney is wide receiver 8 right now in PPR?
I was aware.
Do you expect that to continue?
No, I don't have him ranked in the top 24, and I actively
expect Drake London to go doing it. So you expect Drake London to go down?
Yes,
but you also
expect both of them to go down. But there's a reason why I have Bijan so high.
Dude, it's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins he throws to he's fantasy Jesus for wide receivers.
Don't get me wrong. Again, this is rest of season rankings. I'm still very high on Drake London, and the only reason why I was saying to sell is because I was saying you could get the moon for him. People are gushing over Drake London right now, and I do think that you could go and get a wide receiver in his tier plus a valuable running back, or whatever you need really, plus something. I think both of you gushing over him right now is exactly what I'm talking about. Like I'll
He's
tell you guys.
He's wide receiver 4 on the season.
No, I understand. I understand. He only played so young, and he's got both Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix there. And what could ever go wrong? I just don't think that London offers the upside that you can get from other wide receivers. And I do think that rest of season he is not going. I bet that he does not finish as wide receiver 6 on the season. How about that? Wide receiver 7 or below.
Oh, yeah. We're at 8 on the board when I got him on there. So I'll take 8 or higher.
We're talking about right now he's wide receiver 4, though, so you already have an advantage.
But we're at 8 on the board right now.
Right, but this is rest of season rankings. If you want to stay from week 11
for the
to
whole
week
season, are you saying just for this next?
I was saying for the whole season. I will take wide receiver 8 moving forward, though, for sure.
Done.
Word. I like it.
All right. I'll jump
in. Full point PPR?
I mean, I've been listing every stat on today's podcast by half PPR. I feel like it's just the most down the middle.
Okay.
Right. So I'm next. My next one's gonna be Puka.
Love it.
Puka's only played 2 full games this season. Obviously week 1 injury, week 9 he decided to slap somebody. This should not happen again the rest of the season. Hopefully the rest of his career he decides not to slap anybody again. But in the 2 games that he's played, one of them he got 9 targets, the other 14 targets. 9 targets in a game where he only played 57% of the offensive snap shares. That's pretty crazy. Stafford loves him, and we know Stafford's going to produce fantasy points for his wide receivers, no matter how ugly the Rams' offense is really looking. Um, Puka and Cup produced together. You put up Cup, not Puka.
I was waiting for somebody to know it. I did that
But,
one on purpose. I want to see if anybody knows.
But
Right,
yeah,
I
I mean,
bet.
he's been producing the touch. He hasn't had a touchdown yet, but I mean, PPR is 2 games where he has played the full thing. 18.1. That was the game lowered snap share, and then 18.8. So 2 solid games, and I expect them to keep improving. Schedule gets a little tough at certain points against the Niners and the Jets, but
I don't disagree. I have him rated a bit lower, but I still love Puka. There's just a couple guys I like more. I would say that I put him in A, but I think he's the first teardrop. I think there's a teardrop from Drake down to him in B. I'd be curious where you guys see that.
I
think he's the last.
personally have Cup above Nakua. Is that crazy?
I don't.
The eye test, I don't know what the numbers say, but the eye test, when they're both on the field, it feels like Puka's the first read now.
I do agree with that, but it feels like his targets aren't as valuable.
Puka's been getting more targets, and like I said, he's been dealing with it. Like they've both been ramping back up from injury, so it still is really hard to tell. But I see Puka being, just he's going to get consistent catches. Cup might get the bigger catches. He's going to probably finish with more touchdowns, but he might have some games where he does not get the ball much.
That's where I'm thinking though, is like specifically the touchdown category. Right now in the games that they both played fully together since week 8, it's been 2 games since Puka left week 9 with an injury. In that time, Nakua has 23 targets, 16 receptions for 204 yards and no touchdowns, where Cup has the touchdown, only 130 yards, has 15 targets and 12 receptions. Definitely less than. I do think that they're going to need to rely on Cup's red zone work. I think that he wasn't as ready to come back. Nakua, as soon as he was designated off the IR, popped into that game. So let's Boy, I think we can finish up wide receivers if we truly speed run it.
I got a lot to say.
You got a lot. I feel like we could honestly, if we wanted to, we could make the next 12 wide receivers because this is where I feel like it gets into detailed arguments. You got to make your case. I say let's save this for next week and like get into it a little bit. Wide receiver 12 or 13 through 14, and we'll wrap up tight ends. This is we're at a minute or an hour, 17 minutes in right now. If we go for the next 12 wide receivers, we're going to be here all night.
We're only at 9 wide receivers right now, Dan.
What's up?
We're at 9 right now. Unless I'm miscounting.
Yeah, we are at 9.
You are right. Here we are for wide receiver 10 through 12, and then we'll wrap it up here. All right. So, Lee, you kicked it off. You got wide receiver 10.
Is me next? I thought Mason was
you were number 1, so you got to be number 10.
Yeah, your name's Lee. I just went with Puka.
Oh, I was up first. I went with Jamar Chase. I was.
It was you. See,
I was stretching for time while the old man takes a pee break. No,
You'll see one day. One day you'll know. You'll know.
One day I will know, and it's not that far away. That day is creeping up quick. I have Jaden Reed. I thought it was interesting. Like his production isn't necessarily consistent. I can't say that there's like a designated role where I'm like, this is the clear thing he does for the team. And then on top of it, Jordan Love has been in and out of the lineup. But Jaden Reed right now, with all of that said, right now, wide receiver 10 on the year and half PPR formats. The rest of the season schedule it's solid. It's a little bit above average, 13th easiest moving forward. Jaden Reed is electric. I think if Jordan Love can stay healthy and Jaden Reed can just produce like he did last season to close it out, I think this is going to go far. The last 4 games for the fantasy schedule is Detroit, Seattle, Saints, and Vikings. That's 26th, 24th, 18th, and 28th. That's what you want. This is what you sign up for. If you still have your trades open, go and send an offer because I don't think anyone's is static with the draft pick, despite being wide receiver 10. So go and send some offers. Get a guy like that that can win you your week on your team for this ending stretch. All right, wide receiver 11.
The inconsistency worries me. I've got him a little further back. I've got him at 15, so not a huge difference, but the inconsistency worries me.
Yeah, there is a lot of mouths to feed. I got him at 14, just because there's a lot of mouths to feed. Love dealing with injuries all season. They haven't said too much about his injuries lingering, but you never know really how much that is affecting him. So I mean, it's just there's just inconsistency.
All right.
I want him to just kill it the rest of the season. I have him in a lot of leagues, and the inconsistency is just hurting me.
We're all top 15. Seems like remotely in the same ballpark. Let's kick it over to Lee for the next guy up, wide receiver 11.
This one's a really tough one. I've got about 5 guys that I could go here. And honestly, when I was going through and doing these rankings, wide receiver was by far the toughest. But for me, kind of the tiebreaker is going to be the lack of mouths to feed. There's just no other real options for this guy. And again, he's hit some big plays. He's made some amazing catches. He lost his mind a couple of times this past Sunday. But I'm going to go George Pickens.
Oh, not who I thought. I was so pumped. I do have George Pickens right behind or right in front of this guy who I thought you were going to mention, but keep on going. George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, it's just we know one thing that Russ Wilson does well is throw the moon ball. Mike Williams is there now. He'll catch a couple of big ones like he did to break my Commander heart this past Sunday. But Pickens just he racks up the yak. He can make really big plays, with those short passes. He can get the intermediate. He can get the long stuff. And there's still nobody that's really going to take away. It's a run-first offense, but especially with 2 matchups against the Ravens, those 2 games, I expect George Pickens to be a top 5 wide receiver in those 2 games, and those will buoy him to a really strong finish this year.
First easiest schedule rest of the season. Does play against the second and fourth hardest defenses versus wide receiver in the first week of your playoffs and last week. Philly and KC.
Philly and who?
Philly and KC. Chiefs. All right, Mason. Wrap us up. Wide receiver 12. Who do you got?
I'm going to go ahead and say Zay Flowers.
Woo!
That might be a little early. Yeah, and I know it's a little spicy. There's a lot of inconsistency with Zay Flowers, and I know that I have him in some leagues. But when he has his weeks where he goes off, and that's what you're kind of getting out of this Ravens offense in general, really with anyone. Okay, he's not Jake Bobo.
No one said Tyreek for the top 12 rest of the season?
Dude, that wrist injury and just the Dolphins even I know they're getting back, but Tyreek
he was one of my 4 or 5 I was debating on my 11th spot.
Yeah, he was. But yeah, I mean, just Zay Flowers, he has the potential to just have amazing weeks. And I mean, really anyone on the Ravens offense is boom or bust weeks. He's only had 3 games where he's had under 5 targets. Week 3, he had 4. Week 4, 2. Week 7, only 1. His other 2 lowest games were the last 2 weeks, 6. He's getting enough targets. Sometimes it's going to be just short little yardage plays, and those suck. But he's going to make some big plays sometimes, and that's why we're really banking off Zay Flowers. They got Giants in Week 15. That's a nice playoff matchup, and then Houston, who's been giving up a lot to the wide receivers in fantasy this year.
Have they? Is that true? Are you making that up, Mason?
You said Houston?
Dan, I need a fact check on that.
I got it. Was
This-
it Houston, you said?
Yeah.
Houston's been giving up a lot
Houston
of
right now is 21st in points against expectation versus wide receivers. So positive matchup. Fifth, they're an above average matchup for wide
Oh,
receivers.
what I'm looking at says they're 25th.
This is against expectation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no, never mind. This might not be against expectation. It might just be most. But
but I mean, either way, it is a positive matchup. I do see what you're saying. I just can't. But I'm still not over that. Tyreek's not in the top 12 rest of the season. Now that Tua is back, I get Tua's like one hit away. But I don't know. I almost feel I have them next side by side for Jaden Reed and Tyreek Hill. Almost want to consider replacing it, but we will be back next week. Finish off these wide receiver rankings. We got tight ends left to go, and we'll hit you with some more, in the moment news, updates on injuries, maybe some last second trades. Always feel free to hit us up in the comments if you have a question or reach out to us on the socials. We got most of our handles under our names. Mason's Mbeck, FRM Beck.
Mbeck is an asshole.com.
Is that,
hey, man, this asshole beat you in fantasy this week.
Hey, blind squirrel, man. Blind squirrel. I mean, I have 3/4 of my team on the IR, but it is what it is. Got to play through injury.
hopefully they stay
Next
there
man
for
up.
my sake.
Hey, you know who beat you? You know who
What's up?
beat you last week? Bo
Me?
fucking Nix.
Well, I beat Dan last week, so by the transitive property of fantasy football, Dan should be at the bottom of the screen.
What is this nonsense? How did I get here? This is your guys' bullshit. Yeah, you scraped it out in the Monday night game. Got Puka Nacua with all those receptions. I was like, I don't think Puka's gonna do it unless he gets a touchdown. 14 targets and 9 receptions later. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping this trade for Christian McCaffrey in the Dynasty League can send me over the top. We'll see how it goes. No, not today. It was within the last week though.
When did you trade for Christian McCaffrey?
I think it was the first. I think it was just the first, maybe another running back.
I
pulling
missed
it up
that
right
trade.
I sent Alexander Madison and a first round pick for Christian McCaffrey.
Interesting.
And then I mean much smaller trade, but today I traded what was it? Treylon Burks for Zach Ertz, which is fun. Just saying it. But yeah, I needed a backup tight end. I got Kyle Pitts coming up on bye, and it's either him or Tanner Hudson. So we got some Zach Ertz to bolster that. I'm coming for you, Lee, though. We're about to move Braylon Allen out of the taxi squad, get some damage done. All right, boys. Let's wrap it up here. We are appreciative of everyone who tuned in. We will be back for more rest of season rankings. Go out there, make those trades, crush your matchups this week. Words. Everyone take it easy.
Fuck Philly.
Yep.